Welcome back. In this episode of X Girls, we're getting to know our panelists. We just heard Christy's story, and now we're going to hear from Bronwyn. Bronwyn, can you tell us what your childhood was like?
For me, I think I had a fairly regular, whatever that looks like, upbringing. My father was an alcoholic till I was 3, and when I turned 3, he got sober. I don't remember him stopping drinking. I remember the change in the atmosphere in the home when he stopped. And then I basically grew up with parents who loved me, cared for me, supported me, encouraged me to be a big dreamer. And when I was 13, we moved interstate, and it was kind of like I lost my friends, and in losing my friends, I kind of lost my identity. So when we moved interstate, I went to an elite private girls' school, and there I just got lost. It was kind of like, who am I? You know, and I didn't know who I was. And so then that became, who am I and how did I get here? And that kind of was my teenage life. And I got right to the end of my final year in high school and hadn't tried drugs, and someone offered me some. And I thought, you know what, I deserve a treat. And I didn't know who I was on the inside. So I tried marijuana at 16, and within the next 6 months used every drug under the sun.
Wow.
And that led me down a pathway of destruction.
Wow. And so then how did you end up in the sex industry?
For me, it was, you know, I spent all my own money first, and then I stole other people's money, and then I stole their possessions and sold them for money, and I stole from my job. And it came to the point where after nearly 3 years as a heroin addict, that the only thing that I had left was my body. And I thought, as a woman, I have that, and it's mine. And so, you know, I made one phone call and started work that night in an illegal brothel in Brisbane in Australia. And for me, you know, I say I worked the streets of Brisbane every night for 12 months. And a lot of people say to me, 12 months isn't very long. And my response is, 12 seconds is too long.
Yeah.
I was somebody's daughter.
Yeah.
You know, I was loved, valued, created with a purpose, and I didn't know that. And so that 12 months were the most soul-destroying time of my life. I look back over my journey now, and it's just like that 12 months could have taken me out.
Wow.
Yeah.
It obviously didn't.
It didn't.
So how did you get out of the sex industry?
I was getting ready for work one night in an illegal brothel, and I say to people, if you've seen Pretty Woman, it's a lie. Hollywood does really great at that, and Richard Gere is not the savior of the world. And I didn't get to the end of an hour-and-a-half film and someone whisked me away in a fancy car and give me a fancy necklace. I had, you know, knives at my throat and guns at my head, and I took whatever drugs I could find to survive, to stay alive, I thought. And I was getting ready for work one night. There was a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and it was my mum, who hadn't seen me for a year and a half, who was crying, looked me in the eye and challenged in me my identity, which is what we do every day at Hope Foundation now. Who are you? What are you doing here? And my mum said, who are you? And how did you get here? You're not the girl we raised you to be. I've been looking in the death notices for your name.
Wow.
And for me at that time, I didn't have any emotion, and I didn't care about anybody else except me and the heroin that was feeding my system. And so it was kind of like, well, I don't really know. And when she left, it kind of haunted me. And I started to say, who am I? How did I get here? And that became, who am I? How did I get here? How do I get out? And I ran away from the industry one day, went and lived with a heroin addicted boyfriend and got off drugs in my own strength. And that began the recovery journey that has lasted 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Bronwyn, you actually wrote an incredible book like Harmony, also called Trophy of Grace. Can you tell us, like, how did you write that story?
It actually began for me as therapy. I was just kind of like, I just need to get this out. And I sat down and I kind of thought I need to do that. And someone dropped over a secondhand computer one day and said, God said you need to do this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. I had a baby. She was 4 months old. She used to roll around on the floor while I would sit there and tap it out. And then it kind of got shelved for a bit, and then someone offered to edit it, and then someone offered to pay to get it printed, and It became what it is. And that book's now 8 years old and has opened incredible doors, you know. And from it, people say, if it worked for you, can it work for me? And I'm like, God can work for anyone. Yeah.
So awesome. These are literally some of the bravest girls that I've ever met. So thank you, Bronwyn. And coming up, we're going to find out what our panelists are doing today.